During the pre-industrialization, the North and the South started to colonize. The North's lifestyle was very different from the South. The North began to cooperate towns, businesses, and even built churches. The townspeople would line up at church because they had more freedom than people in the South. They were more colonized. They also started their own town government and had a democracy. They had jobs like fishing, whaling, lumbering, logging, shipbuilding, craftsmen, and they even started to trade. As for the South, they had no towns, just plantations, and the only government was the plantation owners. The workforce was made up of planters and slaves. There was very little freedom in the South. There was African American slavery at plantations. Although it wasn't just slaves, they had indentured servants too. It is where new inventions like the cotton gin and steel plow were first used. This is when new ideas and inventions all started and what began America's progression.
Early industrial America changed the way America was run and the way technology worked. A key piece of early industrial America was the growth and expansion of railroads. Railroads made it much easier, quicker, and more efficient to transport not only goods, but people too. Railroads stretched all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. The growth of railroads also caused the growth of cities out west, some of these being Chicago, St. Louis, and Minneapolis. These cities became major railroad junctions. Eventually, consolidation occurred, which is the combining of smaller railroads with larger ones, which make the railroads even more efficient than ever before. Factories also arose in early industrial America. Huge factories that employed hundreds of people could produce extreme amounts of goods and easily ship them all across the country due to the growth of railroads. These factories created more jobs and brought immigrants looking for work into America, which boosted the population, therefore boosting the economy. These large factories, however, did have problems with strikes and complaints about the poor working conditions. Strikes took place, and sometimes riots would occur, and people would end up getting hurt. To prevent these strikes, factory owners would work together and create blacklists. Blacklists contain the names of troubled workers, normally the leader of strikes. Factories also ran lockouts and hired scabs to replace striking workers.
The late industrial period consisted of new business methods, monopolies like Rockefeller and Carnegie, immigration, urbanization, and political machines. The business field developed new ways to manage companies, but with this came corruption. Some new methods were corporations, holding companies, trusts, and horizontal and vertical integration. A corporation was a company owned by various investors who bought stock in the company. A holding company existed only to hold stock in other corporations, and a trust was a group of trustees who had control of the operations of several companies. These were all helpful to business, but also aided to the creation of monopolies. Horizontal and vertical integration also contributed to monopolizing businesses by joining businesses in the same fields, which is horizontal integration, or in different but related activities, vertical integration. John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie were two of the biggest monopolies in the history of the United States. Rockefeller created Standard Oil and practiced both horizontal and vertical integration. He formed trusts and took out other companies and drew in anything that got in his way. Rockefeller's strategies were focused on the growth of his business, and he did not care what happened to any companies that he eliminated. Carnegie Steel also used both horizontal and vertical integration. He hired the smartest and ablest people in the industry and took control of many other companies such as ships, railroads, and coal mines. Both men created monopolies and contributed to the government's reason and system to keep monopolies from happening today. New immigration has also played a huge part in late industrialization. Immigrants started emigrating from Eastern and Southern Europe, while previous immigration was from Ireland and Germany. The European immigrants brought new cultures and customs along with them, including languages, religions, dress, and holidays. They settled in cities where they could find jobs and in ethnic neighborhoods where they could speak their own languages and practice the customs of their country. Americans developed a distaste for these immigrants, expanding nativism even more. With new businesses and more cities came population growth. Urbanization could be a good thing, but it came with a lot of problems. There was very little living space, unsafe housing, not enough schooling or hospitals, increasing crime, poverty, sanitation issues, and disorganization. Everything cost a lot of money, and the money came from the people. To fix these problems, building codes had to be enforced, trash disposal and sewer systems had to be added, law enforcement had to be expanded, road plans needed to be organized, and city water systems needed to be added.
In post-industrial times, many changes occurred. One large change was the invention of the automobile. The automobile expanded the nation by creating roads and interstates. It also made travel much faster and easier for the average person. Roads and interstates also made it possible for the expansion of cities into suburbs and towns. Suburbanization was the expansion of homes outside of the city, and workers would commute into the city each day. Suburbs would often form in ring-like circles around the city, and the houses would often be very close together. When people bought houses in the suburbs, it boosted the economy because of the large expenses that come along with a house. Another big change was companies manufacturing in other countries, where they could pay workers for less. International competition became a big trend, and business would cut costs where they could. The US companies would produce a product in another country and then import it to the US to be sold. International trade also picked up at this time too. During post-industrialization, some women also started wearing shorter dresses that exposed more skin, and these women were called flappers.